Yes, it is Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. It's a Subway to Shea series preview as the New York Mets get set to take on the Washington Nationals down in D.C. for 3-game set. Hope everyone's doing well. We are going to get right into what has happened with the Mets with our little brief recap. So the Mets took on a 4-game set with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and it was a tale of two teams, right? The Mets split with the Diamondbacks. They won the first 2 games of the series, and then they lost the final 2 games of the series. And really the only, big positive takeaway is that beautiful home run Strawberry from the Darryl Strawberry Day and the number retirement, which was a very fun atmosphere to be around. I was there for that game. I was there for the ceremony and really should have left after the ceremony because the game was nasty, and we'll get into that. Let's go with game 1 first. Francisco Lindor having the best game of the season for himself as the Mets win 3-2. Christian Scott, 5 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 of them earned, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. He got sent down after that game. He'll be back up. Don't worry. I think it's just a scheduling issue with the whole London series coming up and the Mets not wanting to do a 6-man rotation right off the bat, but he will be back. Francisco Lindor, like I said, had the best game of his season, went 4 for 4, had a home run, 2 RBIs, and 1 run. And then JD Martinez with the game-winning hit in the 8th inning. It was a game-winning home run. Reed Garrett closed out the game for his 3rd save of the season. Then you go to game 2. The Mets hold off a late rally by the Diamondbacks and win 10-9. And this is where you start to get a little worried when you see the end of that game. The Mets had a 10-5 lead going into the 9th, went to Sean Reed-Foley, who gave up a couple runs. Reed Garrett came in, gave up a couple runs, and then all of a sudden it's 10-9. And you're thinking to yourself, the Mets can't possibly blow this, or could they possibly blow this? And they might possibly blow this, but they ended up winning the game. Severino wasn't on his game that day. 5 1/3 innings pitched, 6 hits, 5 runs, 4 of them earned, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. We had multi-hit games from Starling Marte, who had 4 RBIs. Mark Vientos, he had 3 hits and he had 2 RBIs. Francisco Lindor stayed hot, and Brandon Nimmo got a couple of hits, which was very much needed for him. And then you have JD Martinez hit another home run. That's his 5th home run of the season. You go to game 3, Darryl Strawberry Day. Everything seemed to be beautiful. The weather, the ceremony, Darryl's speech. He even addressed the team, telling them to, soak this in, enjoy this, and, embrace the city, embrace the crowd, embrace the fans. And what happened? The Mets lose 10-5. Look, they were very lifeless from the 1st to the 5th inning until a home run by Mark Vientos made it 4-1 because Sean Manaea gave up a grand slam. What an uneven outing for Sean Manaea. He pitched 5 2/3 innings pitched, gave up 6 hits, 6 runs, 5 of them earned. He hit a grand slam to Christian Walker, who, if you listen to the last series preview, when we talked about the Arizona Diamondbacks, I said that was a matchup to watch out for, and Christian Walker delivered. 3 walks as well, but then he struck out 10 batters. Like, it was such a weird outing for Sean Manaea. Didn't help the Mets' cause. They ended up giving up 10 runs. Josh Walker came in relief and gave up a couple runs himself. And then you go to the 9th, where the Mets started to make a little bit of action, a little bit of moves. A nice beat-out play by Jose Iglesias to extend the game and set up a Pete Alonso home run, but it was just a little too late for the Mets, and they lost that game 10-5. We go to the game 4, and Jake Diekman blows a save in the 9th. Where have we seen this before? Where have we heard this before? You can just put in any reliever that the Mets have had to try to come in and close the game, and they have given up the lead. I don't know how many blown saves we're at now, but it's getting a little bit ridiculous. The Mets lose the game 5-4. Jake Diekman gave up a 2-run home run to Ketel Marte in the 9th inning, and Man, that guy, I think, had 2 home runs in that game. He is a stud, and I had him in my fantasy team last year, and I think very highly of Ketel Marte. For the Mets, Brandon Nimmo, JD Martinez, back-to-back triples. They had 3 RBIs combined. The Mets had the lead going into the ninth, but Jake Diekman gave up the 2-run home run to Marte to cause this Mets loss. And instead of having a 3-1 series win, the Mets are still searching for their first series win since I think it was beginning of May. So the Mets have either lost series, been swept in series, and they have not been able to win a series. And we are tied here. It was 2-2 between the Diamondbacks and the Mets. Very deflating, especially with the way the series ended, especially after what happened last week, right? We talk about the speech that Darryl Strawberry made and how he tried to relate to today's players and those players in that dugout and even trying to encourage them and give them a pep talk. And that didn't seem to work. They had this players meeting on, I think it was Thursday or Wednesday after the game. They got rid of Jorge Lopez. They made moves. Like I mentioned, Jose Iglesias was brought up finally. They brought up the Daniel Nunez, obviously sent down Christian Scott, who will be back. They sent down Brett Beatty, who, of course, hits 2 home runs in AAA in his game on Sunday. But it seems all that good vibes, right? All those good vibes going into Saturday, winning 2 in a row finally in a long time. And then you had the Saturday game where the offense looked lifeless. The bullpen was terrible. It was just an all-around bad game, right? Like we talk about, the starting pitching is good, but the hitting's bad. The hitting is good, but the pitching is bad. And then the both starting and the hitting is good, and then the bullpen is bad. Today, down Saturday, everything was bad. It was just an all-around bad game. Sunday is the game, the killer. And how many more games is this team going to have to go through like this? There's been too many, and it's only the beginning of June. It's very frustrating to see, very frustrating to watch. You got to start thinking, is this the group that you want to surround players by? Because, how much more are they going to take and not show resiliency? Like, obviously, those 2 games, like, it felt like it was so long ago. But, we move on to the series coming up against the Washington Nationals, who are in 3rd place. So let's get to the tail of the tape of this. Yeah, like I said, 27-31 right now for the Washington Nationals lands them 3rd in the NL East. The Mets are in 4th in the NL East at 24-35, 11 games under 500. Now let's look at the hitting here. The Mets lead in most categories here, right? Outside of one. Batting average, 236 for the Mets, 230 for the Nationals. Home runs, 63 for the Mets, 47 for the Nationals. RBIs, 238 for the Mets, 214 for the Nationals. And OPS, 686 to the Nationals, 658. But, and this is a big but, stolen bases for the Nationals. They have 94 stolen bases to the Mets, 42. And now that's going to become key in the next topic that we're going to talk about, because you look at the pitching, right? ERA better for the Nationals, 385 to 425 for the Mets. Strikeouts the Mets have there, 530 to the Nationals, 454 strikeouts. And then you look at the walks, 241 for the Mets, 170 for the Nationals. And you think to yourself, this could be a series, right, that the Mets can turn around, and maybe this is the team that they need to play. Even though the Nationals are in 3rd, they have not been great, but the Mets lead the league in walks. And why did I mention stolen bases are important? Because the Nationals lead the league in stolen bases. And that could be a problem. If the Mets start walking Nationals, it's going to be a field day running off of that pitching and the bad catching that we've been getting. The Nationals can easily win these games just by the walks and stolen bases. So the Mets really need to focus in on not walking batters, which they have not been able to hold. They have not been able to throw runners out at second base. So this is a big advantage for the Nationals here, especially when the Mets are losing all these close games and are losing in frustrating fashion and are beating themselves. It's a big problem. Let's look at the pitching probables for this series. You got Tyler McGill going in game one against Mackenzie Gore. Tyler McGill 0-2 with a 1.69 ERA. Mackenzie Gore 4-4 with a 2.91 ERA, but seems to handle the Mets. I mean, he's a lefty. That gives the Mets problems. You got two lefties going in this series, and that is going to give the Mets some problems here. David Peterson going in game two. Got a 3.60 ERA, did not have a decision in his debut. Going up against Mets former friend Trevor Williams, who is 5-0 with a 2.22 ERA in the rotation, helping the Mets out. And you think about who the Mets have in there. You think about that 2022 season right now, right? Mets had Chris Bassett, who's not having a great season this year, but had one last year. And Trevor Williams, two people who could probably be in the rotation right now, just on baseball skill alone. I know that there's some off the field stuff with Trevor Williams, but you look at who the Mets have fielded the last few. You got Jose Quintana, who's been struggling all season long. You had Adrian Hauser in the rotation. Meanwhile, imagine a rotation, and you know it's revisionist history. But if the Mets had Chris Bassett, Seth Lugo, Trevor Williams in this rotation right now, they would probably be in the better spot. Obviously, the hitting has not helped the Mets, and maybe it'd be worse. But at least the starting pitching, you'd get innings, you'd get length from these guys. Game three, Luis Severino, 3-2 with a 3.52 ERA going up against Patrick Corbin, 1-6 with a 5.83 ERA. The Mets have either handled him well or have failed miserably against him. And with the way this offense has been going this season, being inconsistent, I can see them struggling. Which brings me to our matchups to watch. You go with the Nationals. Let's go with them first. And one of the only ones that I saw that had a lot of sway here was Eddie Rosario, is batting .500 with one home run, 9 RBIs, and a 1.500 OPS in 10 at-bats against Tyler McGill. So be on the lookout for Eddie Rosario in game one. You go to game two, you got Francisco Lindor up against Trevor Williams, 286 batting average against him, one home run, 3 RBIs, and a 976 OPS in 14 at-bats. Can this continue to be the hot streak that Francisco Lindor goes on? We will definitely see as this series progresses. And he will be up again here because Francisco Lindor against Patrick Corbin, 316 batting average, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs, and a .842 OPS in 38 at-bats against Corbin. We got the whole Mets roster has hit well, but I picked out the three best ones with the most at-bats. Pete Alonso, 318 batting average, 5 home runs, 9 RBIs, and a 1.13 OPS against Patrick Corbin in 44 at-bats. You look at as well, Starling Marte, 310 batting average, a home run, 6 RBIs, and a 770 OPS in 42 at-bats against Patrick Corbin. So those are the matchups to watch this series. The Mets have an opportunity with their offense. This is a time to see if they can find some consistency because they have been hitting better. You look at the tail of the tape that I showed you, the Mets have improved their offense with batting average, with the OPS. They have improved over the last time we've talked, and they keep getting a little bit better and better. Now the bullpen and the pitching has the thing that's been struggling, and it's going in the opposite direction. Now let's go into our ripe and rotten players right now. Ripe, Francisco Lindor, we bring him up again, 357 batting average, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, 2 walks, 2 stolen bases, and a 1.007 OPS in his last 7 games. On the other hand, rotten Brandon Nimmo, 174 batting average, 2 RBIs, which was on Sunday, 2 walks, 544 OPS, 10 strikeouts in the last 7 games. It doesn't seem like he likes batting third. I don't know if we can swap him and Starling Marte, or whoever bats second, which will either Marte or Pete Alonso. Maybe we can swap those two, because I don't want to move Francisco Lindor right now from that leadoff spot. He's been hitting very well, like I mentioned, and I don't want to move him from that spot. So we got to figure out something with Brandon Nimmo, maybe move him up to 2, or, I don't know if you got to keep moving him down the order. I would like to have his bat in the lineup more times and get more opportunities, but something has to give with Brandon Nimmo. Who's ripe in the pitching staff? The Daniel Nunez, who the Mets brought back up, has a 0 ERA and 8 strikeouts in 4 innings pitched, a .75 whip. Rotten for the pitching staff, Jose Quintana. That was a bad start on Sunday. 0-1, 5.40 ERA. Look at this. 12 hits, 6 earned runs, 4 of them from home runs, 3 walks, and 7 strikeouts in his last 10 innings pitched. Man, that was a struggle in the last start. And then, his previous start as well. Just, he has not pitched well this season. And I think it's time to put him up on the trade block and see what you can get for him, so that Christian Scott can finally solidify himself in this rotation, and get Jose Butto back up here, please. I don't know why we're still waiting for Jose Butto to get back up here. Washington players to watch: Jose Meneses, 6 for 15, 2 doubles, 5 RBIs, 2 runs, and a .400 batting average, .933 OPS in his last 4 games. He's got that power to watch out for. He doesn't have any home runs here, but you got to watch out for Joey Meneses. And for pitching, I got game 1 starter Mackenzie Gore, had a 1.69 ERA, 1.13 whip, 5 1/3 innings pitched, 6 hits, 2 runs, 1 earned, no walks, and 10 strikeouts. So be on the lookout for him in his start against the Mets. It's not going to be easy for the Mets, that's for sure. Well, nothing is easy for the Mets these days. But that's going to wrap it up for the Subway to Shea series preview. Make sure you're following the Subway to Shea podcast on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. Follow me, Anthony Rivera, on X at AntRivera86, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Give me a like, give me thumbs up, subscribe, and make sure you're tuned in on all of my analysis as the season goes on. But that wraps it up for this Subway to Shea series preview. Hope the Mets win this series, hoping for the best. And as I always say at the end of every show, let's go Mets.